Well, it's very difficult to present, after the robot presentation. I think that I cannot compete with them, but let's take a look. So before starting my presentation, I would like that everybody imagine that we need to do a summary of this event. And for this, everyone is gonna create like 1 or 2 sentences describing a little bit the event. And then, probably, if I take the opinion from 1 or 2 people, I'm gonna have a very incomplete and not accurate, summary of this ANITI day. But if I have the ability to take the opinion of everybody in this room, I'm gonna have a more accurate point of view about this event. So it's a kind of a brief summary of the idea of collective intelligence, this ability that we have from the individual opinion from the people, but if we join like in a group, we can have like a very nice summary. So today, I'm gonna present a little bit part of the work that we have been doing at the Center for Collective Learning regarding collective intelligence in the case of digital democracy. But more specifically, I'm gonna talk about the French presidential election. As everybody knows, this year was involved in a clivage politique. Well, that's all my French that I'm gonna do today. In the sense that we have involved in an election, and regarding 12 candidates, and every candidate has a different point of view regarding the situation of France, regarding the war, regarding the crisis, regarding the war, and regarding the climate change. But they also have some stuff in common. So with a team in Toulouse and Paris, we had the idea to say like, look, we have the government program from the candidates. Let's try to create like a collective intelligence project in order to understand the agreement and disagreement from the participants from the citizens in France. So for this, we collected 120 proposals from the government programs, and we create a software called Mon Program in order to create a collective government program. And for this, we have 2 challenges. The first challenge is to create a software in order to bring a very nice point of view to the people about this proposal. And the other big challenge is this point of having a huge list of preference. So for example, for me, or for everyone, it's gonna be easy to sort a list of 5 candidates or 5 proposals. A list of 10 is still okay in a desktop or in a mobile, but if we have to sort a list of 100 proposals, it's impossible. And probably a person is gonna enter to the software, and then it's gonna say, I'm not gonna order this list, and I'm not gonna participate. So we have to face these 2 challenges. In the sense of the challenge, we try to mix this idea of collective intelligence and software interaction with the idea of social choice theory, in the sense that we can collect data from the participation, but also we can try to take into account the approval or not of a preference, and also about the priorities of the preference in this list. So during 1 month, we collected around of 2 million data points from 1,000 participants by using this technique. But let's take a look to the participation that we collected during this period. So why is important to take a look to the participation in digital democracy? Because it's the only way that we have for trying to improve our perspective about the digital participation. Because the question is not if digital democracy is gonna be adopted. The question is when. Because there's a lot of things around the world that are trying to push this idea about digital participation. So the first thing that we notice is that in general, this participation is more focused on young people. Also, we can see an overrepresentation of male over female, and people people that live in urban areas compared to rural areas. So this is an unexpected result, and it coincides with the literature that says that males tend to participate more in this kind of digital platforms. But now let's take a look to the priorities. So when we see the list of the preference that more than 70% of the participants agree on, but yeah, we need, for example, a plan for renewable energies. We need to increase the minimum wage, but there's something in common with these proposals. that in general are not part of the political discussion, are not part of the discussion on Twitter, are not part of the main article in Le Monde. So then we start thinking like, okay, maybe there is something that we are not seeing in the case of the priorities, seeing that all our voting methods, all our rules are very focused just in the case of agreements. So let's think in an example. For example, with my advisor, we need to discuss about same topic, about 100 topics. So probably we have agreement in 99, but we have just one small issue that probably is gonna take the discussion for like 80 or 90% of the time. So we have this feeling that also the same happen when we need to understand the citizen participation. So now we start decomposing the data that we collected from 6 different socio-demographic dimensions in order to understand the difference between the people from the left side, from the right side, the people, the young people, the older people, and trying to see what are the priorities of those groups. And when we look at the different groups, as we can notice that there's different that we expected, but then when we take more deeply into what are the main difference between, for example, the people from the left and from the right, we can notice that we had the restoration of border control by France by leaving the Schengen agreement is one of the proposals that have more difference between the people self-reported from the left and self-reported from the right. And this topic is one of the most discussed on Twitter during the electoral campaign. So in this sense, let's try to measure deviceness. So in the work that we had been doing, we started thinking in this idea that the disagreements tend to explain more like the political action and the discussion. But in order to measure deviceness, we need a measure that can give us the feeling that we can avoid to rely in any self-reported data that is very sensitive. In the case of, for example, it's very sensitive asking for the political orientation. So in our case, we start thinking in this idea. We have the proposal A and proposal B. And the people in red prefer the proposal A. And the people in green prefer the proposal B. Under the assumption that under the same dilemma, they prefer a completely opposite preference, we say that those groups are completely different. And for those groups, we calculate a ranking of preference. We repeat the same procedure for all the possible proposal pairs that we collected from the data. And the result from this experiment, for this procedure, is the formalization of the idea of divideness as a method to measure the divisive issues from a pairwise comparison data. So now let's decompose and see a little bit the ranking of agreement and disagreements. So in the case of disagreement, now we start seeing like increase the retirement age, restoration of border control by France, leaving the Schengen agreement, and finish the 35-hour working week. And those topics are precisely the topics that were most discussed in the newspapers. So this is an example in Le Monde about the increased retirement age. And if you follow the election discussion, it was one of the topics that Macron tried to push a little bit more. And this is something that is very interesting for the case of our research, because we also include one of the proposals that say that prohibit the burkini at municipal swimming pool. It was ranked 120. I mean, the last priority in the data. But when we see the ranking of disagreement of this proposal, was part of the most divisive proposal in the data. So, and as you remember, in May, June, the controversy regarding the decision of the municipality of Grenoble about the burkini took the attention of Twitter and all the newspapers in France, and even reaching coverage around the world. So in some sense, the divisive issues have an explanation in the case of social science, but this also can have an interpretation in the case of the math. So with the same data that we collected in this experiment, we start taking a look to the data, but using matrix decomposition. So we use the SVD decomposition for starting to take a look like, okay, does the different eigenvector correlate with some data or with some ranking that we calculate in this experiment? So we notice that the first factor of the decomposition correlate with the ranking of agreement. So that's fine. But the second factor, the second eigenvector in our data correlate with the case of disagreements. So the feeling that we have from this is that, okay, maybe the matrix decomposition can give us the interpretation that those matrix and those vector, maybe the agreement and disagreement are not correlated, but indeed they live in harmony in a different factors in our matrix decomposition, and those vectors are orthogonal each other. So for us, one of the main conclusions is that this finding shows that divisive proposal can take more the political action, and the political engagement is also correlates with the divisive issues. Despite the fact that we have a lot of agreement between the population, but the divisive issues are the topic that generate most the political discussion. So, and also divides is a new dimension that we are trying to take into account, in the sense that it's not a voting rule that generates a list of disagreements. It's a voting rule that behind the idea of the agreements, it takes like a new perspective of the case of the citizen preference. And just a final remark, this is just one, the case of MON program is just one isolated case of a work that we had been doing during the last 3 years at the center. So MON program is one of the seven platforms that we had been deploying during the last time. And the idea behind MON program or Brazucracia, that was the last platform that we launched like a few weeks ago, is the idea to put at the disposition of digital democracy tool in a way of like having a better democracy and having a better and more auditable democracy. And thank you.
Des questions? Oui, Cédric, attends.
I have a question about the collection of the data. Mm-hmm. So I took part in this survey, and if I remember well, there were like 2 types of questions. You had like pairwise comparison, so you had to give your preference to this proposition or that proposition. But you also had at some points to rank some of the propositions, and I felt like the pairwise comparison were very easy and quick to do, but the ranking of some of the propositions took time and was like more tedious. So I was wondering how important is the ranking part, and if you can keep only the pairwise comparison, because I felt it was easier, and produce similar results.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Indeed, part of the idea with this platform was to try to understand the difference and the nuance, giving different perspective of the participation, trying to compare pairwise comparison and in the case of ranking comparison. And here I can give an example. So for example, the proposal of increased salary for PhD student is approved by 99% of the people. Everyone say like, yeah, we need to increase the salary of the student. But when we need to see if that's the real priority of the population, probably it's around in the ranking like 50%. So in some sense, the approval voting give us the information about what are the things that the people want, no matter if the people think it's a priority or not. So in some sense, this can give us the difference between 2 different groups in the population. But in the case of the rank voting data, can give us this feeling about like, okay, what are the real priorities between the population? So in some sense, in one program, we try to measure this difference for trying to address more the discussion. Welcome.
Encore une question?
Hi, thanks for the presentation.
Thank
I
you.
was wondering if this sorting of the, when you have the most important things and the more divisive issues, did you see that in the most important subjects, was there more divisiveness or more conciseness in what people were choosing? Meaning that if there is a very, very important topic, if we are not doing something about it, it's because of divisiveness, or is it because they're not picking it up? And in that sense, maybe it could be a way to give it to parliament, to politicians, in a way to restructure the priorities.
Yeah. Well, one thing that thank you for your question. One thing that we notice from the data in general is that when we start comparing the divisive issues, so for example, if a topic is highly, if the people tend to approve it, like in 99%, it's not probably in the case when we explore in devices, it's not the top priority. So for me, this is just a feeling. Is that when there is a very divisive issue, the people tend to take position about the issue, not just about if you approve or not. So for example, one thing that we noticed exploring data from Chile a few years ago is that in Chile, from a pairwise comparison data, the most divisive issue was the new constitution. And as probably you know, in Chile started a new constitutional process in 2019 and it was rejected recently. But the point is that the people, in the case of the new constitution in Chile, was like, no, yeah, we really need a new constitution. And the people that approved that, they try to put at the top of the ranking. But the people that reject that position, it tend to put like at the bottom. It's like, I don't like at all. I really want that topic is on the bottom. So in general, those topics, when we start taking a look to the rankings, are in the middle. So in some sense, the divisive issues tend to be like in the middle because this kind of equilibrium between the forces. So this method or diviseness tend to give us the information that is in the middle, but trying to differentiate the priorities that are really in the middle because the people like, maybe not, but the other proposal that are the middle because of the divisive nature.